Hello, hello, hello. Here we are back for another House of the Dragon episode recap. Episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel. Obviously, when we left off from episode 1, massive thing happened at the end. We saw the death of the heir to the Iron Throne, Jaehaerys Targaryen, gets his head chopped off by Blood and Cheese at the very end. And obviously, the start of this episode deals with the fallout from that. We get some of the reaction to that death from family members, from people on Team Black. We find out who's responsible for these actions. Rhaenyra and Daemon finally have a fight that they've probably needed to have for a long time because of all the tension between them. And we got a lot of other stuff thrown in between, including Farewell, My Brother, the long-awaited duel that everybody could tell was coming from people on either side of this conflict when it comes to the King's Guard. And yeah, episode 2. I thought that in episode 2, I'll talk a little bit about it before more people start rolling in, before we get into the breakdown of the episode. I thought that episode 2 had some actual higher, stronger moments than we saw in episode 1, but I also thought there was a couple scenes that either I didn't like the depiction or it seemed kind of jammed in there for some reason. I feel like this episode had a little bit higher highs and a little bit lower lows in terms of quality. Overall, I still really enjoyed the episode. And I think even when we look back at it, much like we did with the first season, some of those scenes that you might have thought, why is that even in there? I think it will probably pay off a little bit as this season develops and as this season continues. But we'd have another very emotional moment kind of to end this thing. But we got to see Aegon and his grief and how he deals with it. Essentially, we see all of the offspring of the Hightowers, whether it's Alicent, whether it's Helaena, Aegon, Aemond, we see that all of them are fucked up because their parents are awful. At the end of the day, that's kind of what you see. Aegon, Helaena, and Aemond all are fucked up in different ways because, quite frankly, they were a product of a marriage that never should have happened between Alicent and Viserys. They are products of their parents not giving a fuck about them and not caring about them. Even in their moments of greatest grief, their mother, Alicent, is not there for them. But her father really wasn't there for her either. So it's kind of a theme that we have going on for the Greens right now in this season. We'll continue to do so. I think there might be some people that thought there would be a little more action so far throughout this season. I think we're going to pick that up and really get the ball rolling in the next couple episodes. I think episode 3, we are going to see Daemon going to Harrenhal, and I do think we're going to see something start to break out, some actual battles start to break out. And then episode 4, I think it's really going to go crazy. That's kind of my feeling of how things are going to go. But let's see what the chat's saying right now. Fired up for Hot D. Jackson says episode had some clunky dialogue, but was good. There were a couple. I don't know how much the dialogue was clunky or whether it was just I didn't like seeing some of the characters depicted that way, if that makes sense. I also think we had some fantastic sequences. I think Daemon and Rhaenyra having their fight, I think it was brilliantly acted. I think there was some great dialogue and some great points brought up on either side. Because as fucked up as some of the things that Daemon does sometimes, he also is right a lot. At least about the general sentiment of everybody and understanding that you need to be strong, that you need to put that power in play. You can't just sit back and wait for things to happen. Like, Daemon is 1,000% right about that. Unfortunately, the way he reacts sometimes doesn't help him out, right? Doesn't maybe do the things that he needed to do. In this instance, we saw what happened. He wanted to get revenge for Rhaenyra because of everything she was feeling. He wanted to kill Aemon, but he was willing to let somebody else die as well. And as a result, that cost Rhaenyra a lot. Despite Daemon maybe thinking that could be vengeance or revenge, it ended up being a very bad thing and not something that at the end of the day that Rhaenyra wanted to happen. And we're going to see some fallout from that. Let's see. Game On. Sports news and picks for $20. Did you notice Hugh's hair color? I like how the show's dropping hints for future events. Maybe I'm looking into it too much since I've read the book. Either way, enjoying the show. Yeah, we did get some definite background, some random scenes that seem shoved in there in episode 2, including Hugh, which we right now just as Hugh, a blacksmith. Eventually, he'll probably be named Hard Hugh Hammer. But you did get a little bit more about him and his insights, immediately followed up by a scene between Adam and Alan of Hull, which, if you haven't read the book, you're probably like thinking about those scenes. You're like, why the fuck are these even in here? And it was a little clunky. It did seem a little forced, but I do feel like it's probably going to pay off a little bit later from what we witness in this show. So we'll see. We shall see. And thank you for being here. Game On Sports News and Picks. I definitely think that some people were reminded that Rhaenyra and Daemon's relationship is non-conventional, which means there will be tension. Well, not only tension and like non-conventional because it's like an uncle and a niece or whatever, but there is a lot of resentment, you know? There's a lot of resentment that Daemon has in his heart. He is a second son. He was a second son who, you know, he was heir to the Iron Throne before Viserys had a child, and he knew that was going to get stripped away from him. Then it ends up getting stripped away from him to give to Rhaenyra, and he has to like go through all of that and deal with all of that. So he does have a lot of resentment, not only towards his brother and for his decisions, but towards Rhaenyra for getting something that his brother never really wanted him to have. And Daemon is right with a lot of his points about how weak Viserys is and how unwilling to take action he was sometimes, and how it resulted in him being a little bit of a weak leader and a weak king. And he sees a lot of those same things that he feels were the weaknesses of Viserys. He sees that in Rhaenyra as well. And he's not wrong. Like, he's right in a lot of those ways, but sometimes the actions he takes aren't the best responses. But should we get into it? Should we get it? See, I see somebody saying the second episode, awesome, way better than the first episode. I think I would put these on the same level, basically, first and second episode. Maybe a slight step down for this episode, but not much. But I do think that there was more stuff to be critical of in this episode, but I also think there was more stuff that I thought was fucking awesome in this episode as well. But I suppose we should hop right in, huh? We should hop right into this episode, and this episode is named Rhaenyra the Cruel. And we start to learn why, not necessarily for the action that she took, but for the way that the Greens were able to use this propaganda to their advantage after the fallout of what happened. Now, at the very end of the last episode, we saw blood and cheese. We saw Daemon go into King's Landing, recruit a gold cloak, and recruit a rat catcher to sneak into the palace, and he wanted them to kill Aemon Targaryen. They couldn't find Aemon, but they did find Jaehaerys, who is the son, the firstborn son of Aegon and the heir to the Iron Throne. And right in front of Helena, right in front of his sister, they chop off Jaehaerys' head. They take a son for a son. Now, there was a lot of ambiguity as to what Daemon instructed them to do if they couldn't find Aemon. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But at the end of the day, that's what happened. And Jaehaerys gets his head chopped off. And they flee they try to flee King's Landing with his head in a sack to bring it back to Daemon and show what they did. And this episode starts off with seeing everybody right now in the Red Keep, all the servants, all the guards are flooding in there, and basically castle to see if they had anything to do with it, to see what the fuck is going on. They're getting shoved, they're getting roughed up. Nobody really knows, but it's all because everyone is angry and upset about what has just happened. What has happened is they've been invaded, right? Like people are within their walls. They snuck in the middle of the night and they killed a child. And someone who's not very happy about that all is the king. Aegon is furious and he's lashing out by destroying Viserys's model, right? The model of old Valyria that Viserys took so much time in making and building and all these things, that is getting smashed to smithereens. And obviously, you've got a couple meanings there. One, Aegon's just furious. Aegon is looking for something, an outlet for his rage, but also to indicate that his father's legacy, Aegon doesn't give a shit about that. He could not care less. And quite frankly, it's not like Viserys cared about him. So, you know, Aegon doesn't really care for his father's legacy either. You see this scene. obviously pissed off. And I do think that the Aegon actor, I think he was awesome. I think he was awesome in the first episode. I think he was great in this episode as well. We didn't get to see a ton of him, right? Because he was only in episode 8 and 9 for last season, as they did the aging up. But I think he's been fantastic in this so far. He brought like we're getting to know Aegon a little bit more. And as much of an asshole as he is, there is reason to have empathy for Aegon for everything he's been through and everything that he's still currently going through. But he's kind of inconsolable in his rage right now, smashing apart, the Warhammer 40K set that his father spent decades and decades building in his room, right? The only thing that brought Viserys any joy was this thing. And he is tearing it all down. The Lego set, the Warhammer 40K set, it's gone. Now we get a scene of Aemond, who walks in. If you remember, they were looking for Aemond. They went into his room shortly after him and Kristen Cole had left. And he realizes, Aemond realizes as he's looking at what's been disturbed, that these people were looking for him. That they came in, that they were in his room looking for him. He sees one of the gold coins that got left on the floor. This is certainly foreshadowing here, as you have, obviously it's custom when we've seen it before in Westeros when somebody dies and they put the coins over their head or over their eyes and stuff like that. This is certainly a little bit of foreshadowing as Aemond is holding the coin over his one open eye. And if you remember in the background, you have that painting of Harrenhal burning. So maybe a little bit of foreshadowing. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of foreshadowing. And then we have a sequence between Alicent and Otto. And Alicent is trying not to break down when thinking about what has happened and what they put her daughter through, what Helena had to witness. And obviously we know, and we've talked about it a lot, regardless of the fact that so many people in the chat somehow don't want to believe it. But obviously Helena, she's a dreamer. And the way they're portraying that is they're definitely trying to show that she's on the spectrum, right? That she is very socially awkward and uncomfortable in different situations. She's coded as autistic, right? That's what they're trying to do with Helena. And Alicent is thinking about what her daughters had to go through. Now, one of the reasons I think Alicent has so much grief in this moment is because Alicent is a big part of the reason why her grandson just died. Because if you remember at the end of episode 1, where was Kristen Cole? Where was the Kingsguard that should have been patrolling the halls? Oh, that's right. Kristen Cole was busy fucking Alicent. After they'd had that opening sequence, said, we're never going to do this again, Kristen Cole's in bed with Alicent, and they are fucking. And not only Kristen Cole feels a lot of guilt over that, Alicent feels a lot of guilt over that because she realizes, rightly so, that because of her sins, because of what she's doing right now, this is one of the reasons that her son is now having, and her son and daughter having to deal with their child being killed. It's pretty fucked up. And, Otto is saying, now more than ever, we need to caution restraint. And it's all about control when it comes to Otto Hightower. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Viserys Targaryen, whether it's his own daughter, Alicent, whether it's his grandchildren. He is always about control and manipulating people. And that's who Otto has always been. And justifiably so sometimes, I think you can look at a lot of things that Otto Hightower has done in this series, and you can think, a lot of it does seem to be in the best interest of the realm. Knowing what might happen if a female takes the throne, knowing the rebellions that this might cause, knowing actions that can cause consequences. However, about 20% of the time, Otto lets his own ambitions and his need for power and control kind of gaslight himself into thinking that what the good of the realm is really what's good for Otto Hightower. At least that's what it seems to me. Need a drink. That Hightower box is just too good. Listen, I'm not going to lie, dude. Alicent's a catch. Other than the fact that she had to fuck rotting old Viserys Targaryen, of course, if I'm Kristen Cole, I'm 100% clapping those cheeks. I'm finger banging her up against the wall. I'm eating that pussy. Are you kidding me? 1,000%, white cloak or not. But not allowed to do that in this world. Not allowed to do that in this world. And Otto immediately is saying, hey, someone's going to pay for this. We'll make people pay for what happened. And that obviously is about to set up. Oh, I should show this too. Alicent starts telling Otto, like, the gods are punishing us, they're punishing me, and she wants to tell somebody that she's a sinner, right? That she's sinning, that she's doing these things with Kristen Cole that she shouldn't be doing. Doesn't come up in this conversation, but it will come up a little bit later. Now, we get a sequence with Aegon and the Council of Greens, his council. And Aegon wants to fuck shit up. Aegon is pissed. He's furious. He feels helpless. His son is dead. His heir is dead. His legacy has just died in the most horrific possible way. And nobody really wants to listen to him. Everyone's saying, well, you have to have patience, your grace. Think about this, think about that. And when you look at Aegon, he was never taught any of these things. Like, Otto rightfully gets mad at Aegon in this episode and throughout his life because he doesn't do things the right way. But to Aegon's defense, nobody ever gave a shit about him. Nobody ever taught him what he would need to do to rule. Nobody cared that he was off watching children doing death fights, in Flea Bottom. He was a degenerate and nobody really held him to account. And certainly nobody taught him about the politics of this real world that he was going to be stepping into. And I mean, Aegon is furious. He's blaming everybody. He specifically looks at Kristen Cole. Look at this.
You, the Lord Commander of my King's Guard.
I was abed, your grace, having ordered the night's watch.
Abed. Abed!
He was abed. What can he do? He was abed. And Alicent's looking at him like, obviously, they both feel an intense amount of guilt for what has just happened. Kristen Cole he's a fucking piece of shit. I hate Kristen Cole, right? They want you to hate Kristen Cole. At the same time, this dude is wound up with so much shit going on. He has so much guilt and fear and anger and self-loathing, loathing of other people, rage. Like you can tell that Kristen Cole at any point in time could fucking snap. We saw that happen in episode 5 of season 1 with Joffrey Longmouth. Like, we saw that happen. What can happen when Kristen Cole finally that becomes too much for him? And when you do look at the story of Kristen Cole and you look at this guy who has come from nothing, he is the most accomplished person in his house. Nobody ever thought like anybody like him would amount to this. He's, won tourneys. He's beaten Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince, in jousting and in a duel. He gets named to the King's Guard. He really thought he was bringing honor on his family for the first time in their entire history. And then that gets taken away from him after he is seduced by Princess Rhaenyra. And he feels shame over that. And so much shame that he's ready to leave the King's Guard. And he just wants love, right? He's like, I've fallen in love with this person. Let's just go away. You don't worry about being the heir to the throne. Like, I'll take you somewhere. Let's just go somewhere and live and be happy. And Rhaenyra looks at him like, what the fuck? Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Like, I would ever run away with you. We can fuck if you want. And Kristen Cole realizes he's like kind of destroyed his entire life over this. So you fast forward a little bit later, and now he's caught up in the same damn thing with Alicent. And it's caused a lot of fucking problems. It's caused a lot of problems, including a couple deaths that we're going to witness in this episode. A death we witnessed at the end. He was not there for Prince Jaehaerys. But Kristen Cole's got a lot of shit going on right now. And I love this because they're saying, we got to figure out who did this. Aegon knows who the fuck did this.
What? Is there any question who did this? Who would do this save the bitch queen of bastards? The smug cunt of Dragonstone.
Obviously, he's like, of course Rhaenyra did this. Of course Rhaenyra was the one to do it. And Otto basically says, listen, regardless of who it actually was, regardless of who actually is responsible, we have to think about this. We have to think about how we're going to play this. We have a prince who's dead, and that's a terrible, terrible thing. But now that it's happened, we have to take advantage of it. We have to use this. We have to have a funeral. We have to show all of King's Landing what Rhaenyra Targaryen is capable of. Regardless of the fact that Otto doesn't actually think that Rhaenyra is capable of this. He doesn't, And there's a little bit behind the scenes where they kind of revealed that as well. Otto doesn't think that. but he's going to damn sure make use of this. He is going to take advantage of this crisis in any way he can. And if his great-grandson's dead, and he's going to make sure that it helps them politically. They talk about, hey, we caught one of the guys who was involved. It was the gold cloak. It was the gold cloak. Blood is the one that they caught with the head of Jaehaerys in a satchel, right, ready to go and bring it to Daemon. But they obviously don't quite know yet. Aegon is furious. Aegon wants to take immediate action. He doesn't want to just write letters. He doesn't want to play politics. He wants fucking vengeance. He wants revenge for his son being killed. And can you really blame him? And this is actually a good one right here.
She has done this.
I'll have the realm told nothing. We were assaulted within our own walls, within our own beds. I will not be seen as weak.
You're already seen as weak, Aegon.
And you're starting to see this tension between Otto and Aegon really play out as Otto, hey, you're already fucking seen as weak. All right, look at all the stuff that's happened. You're already seen as weak. Don't worry about that. We have to play the politics of this. All while Lara Strong, if you remember from the first episode, has been whispering sweet nothings in Aegon's ear about how Otto doesn't really have his best interests in mind. Otto just wants power for Otto and doesn't really care what Aegon wants. And that's all coming back, right? That's all coming back for Aegon right now in his mind. So they have this plan to put a crazy funeral together and show all of King's Landing the horrors of what Rhaenyra has done and what she will continue to do. Now we get Helaena, poor, innocent, sweet Helaena, who on the spectrum, she's a dreamer. She sees things. She knows these things are going to happen, but she can't really explain herself to her family about what actually will happen. And she right now is cradling what she was embroidering, what she was sewing in the beginning of the last episode when she was talking about, I'm afraid of the rats, like blah, blah, blah. This is what she was sewing. It is essentially the funeral, what do you even call it? Basically a blanket that you're going to lay over somebody who's dead, right? Like this is what it is. She was making this for her son because she knew it was already going to happen because those are the things she sees. And Alicent comes in to talk to Helaena. And when you think about this, if you want some retribution, right? Some like, hey, let me feel a little bit better for Alicent. She could come in, she could comfort her daughter, she could do all these things. She says, no, we're going to have a funeral for Jaehaerys. I don't care that you don't want to go. This is something we have to do. We have to show the realm. We have to save face. We have to do all these things. Helaena does a funeral shroud. Thank you, guys. I couldn't remember the word shroud. Helaena does not want to do it. She doesn't want to go out there. She doesn't know these people. She doesn't want them to see her in her grief. She doesn't care. And what is Alicent worried about? In this moment when her daughter is breaking down, does she fucking hug her? Does she hold her? No, she's worried about what Helaena saw when she saw her and Kristen Cole fucking.
Last night when you came to my room.
This is for my boy.
And Helaena is left alone to deal with this grief. That is going to be a common theme that we see with Aemon, who's left alone to deal with his grief. Aegon later on this episode is going to be left alone to deal with his grief. And it's all because this hoe, Queen Hoe of Westeros. Man, you thought Rhaenyra was a hoe. She is. You're a hoe too, bitch. Because this hoe doesn't care about her children. But did Otto really care about her? I don't know. And this sets up a funeral sequence. The horses look fancy as shit, by the way. Even the the horses have better costuming in this series than the Acolyte does with their actual people, by the way. That's how much attention to detail is paid in this thing. And so they are wheeling poor little Jaehaerys' body around. Look at this shit, by the way. Can we get to this? I want to see if they show it. Let's show it a little bit later. Now, this is Lara Strong. He doesn't even have to torture Blood. He just pulls out the torture instruments, and Blood's like, It was Daemon. It was Prince Daemon Targaryen. He offered me half now and half later. It was him. It was him. It was him. Immediately rats out. It was me and another rat catcher. I don't even know his name, but it was a rat catcher who helped me do this. It immediately sells Daemon out. Like it wasn't even a moment. Here's poor Jaehaerys with his head sewed back on. They sew his head back on, and they still make it very obvious that they had to sew his head back on because they want to show the small folk. They want to show the people of King's Landing who Rhaenyra Targaryen is. This is when they're saying monstrous Rhaenyra Targaryen, Rhaenyra the cruel, pretender to the throne. This is what she's capable of. Look at the acts of Rhaenyra Targaryen. And I gotta say, it does the job. It does exactly what they wanted it to do. You have the people of King's Landing crying and feeling terrible for these people who live up on the hill, right? Who are so out of touch with what they're struggling with. But even in this world, everyone can sympathize with the death of a child, right? And kind of you're seeing this like you're seeing it bobble around the whole time. You're like, oh my God, is the head gonna fall off? Are we really gonna see the head fall off of this poor kid? Doesn't end up happening, but they do end up getting stuck. And Helena sees all these people out there supporting her. She doesn't want to be there. Alicent's worried. Aegon comes to confront Blood. We get this. Boom. Well, he's done. I don't think there's going to be any sympathy from Aegon towards one of the people that chopped off his kid's head. But you then see the carriage kind of gets stuck, and they're like, oh, we got to move it on. We got to move it. What's going to happen? Helena just starts to have basically a panic attack. Like, I totally thought that head was going to roll off. I'm not lying. But you do see that now the people of King's Landing are very supportive and empathy, like have a lot of empathy for what happened to Helena. And they do not like Rhaenyra right now after all of this shit. And socially awkward Helena is having a panic attack, basically. She's on the spectrum, guys. I'm going to keep repeating that until everybody agrees with me about it. Now, let's go back to Dragonstone, back to the Blacks. The Council of Blacks are gathering. And Rhaenyra's like, wait, so let me get this straight. A little boy had his head chopped off. Helena's son, my half-sister, had his head chopped off. And people think it was me? I didn't have anything to do with this. I had nothing to do with this. Why would they even imagine that? Kind of realizing that, okay, the Greens are spreading propaganda. We have to counteract that propaganda. That it's really, and they're like, her Maester and Celtigar, all these guys are really telling her, this does not look good for you. There's a lot of sympathy for the Greens right now. Sympathy was in your favor for what happened to Lucerys, but now after an act like this, there's going to be a lot of people that do not take your side. It's really damaging your position. And she is like, here, the damage to our position has been immeasurable. There is a fucking great sequence right here where she's saying, listen, having lost my own son, why would I do this to an innocent? I would never do this to Helena. Why do people think this was me? And the entire time, Daemon is just sitting there with this fucking look on his face. He obviously knows what happened. And slowly people start to realize that he also knows what's happening.
Having lost my own son, that I would inflict such a thing on Helena of all people. An innocent.
I want to get to, there's a scene. Oh, here we go. This is it right here. When Rhaenys looks across at Daemon, like Rhaenys immediately, when hearing that a horrific crime has been committed and a child got murdered, she suspects Daemon. Rightfully so.
The death of Prince Lucerys was a shock and an
that fucking side eye from Daemon, who realizes, well, she knows that I did it. She knows I fucking did it. And a little bit later, Rhaenyra figures it out. She's like, you've been rather quiet. Usually you have a lot to say. You always think that we're going to do all these things, Daemon. Why are you so quiet?
Did Did you send assassins to murder children in their beds?
I said,
And now this sets up like a 2 or 3 minute sequence, an argument between Daemon and Rhaenyra. And they go over a lot of things. You know, Daemon is trying to explain that, listen, I sent them after Aemond, the brother of the usurper. It was very clear what I wanted them to do. But Rhaenyra doesn't quite believe it. She pushes him. Are you sure? Well, what if they couldn't find him? Like, are you sure that's all you said? He's very adamant that if they did it, it was something they did by themselves. I don't know if I believe that, and I don't think Rhaenyra believes that. It is left pretty ambiguous as to what Daemon said after they asked him, what if we can't find Aemond? I think they wanted a son for a son. That's what I think they wanted. And I think that's what Daemon told them, and I think that's why they did that. I don't think Blood and Cheese would have just hacked off that kid's head without kind of explicit instructions from Daemon. Rhaenyra doesn't feel that either. But they're having a blowout that really has been a long time coming, because we saw in the last couple episodes with everything that went down in season 1, Daemon really feels like Rhaenyra's not taking the proper action, like that she needs to be doing more, that she could have ended this war already. She could have done, like, she could have stopped it. She could have taken back her throne. But instead, a usurper is sitting where where my brother sat, where you were supposed to sit. And you're sitting here, you're not taking action. Rhaenyra throws it in his face a little bit that Viserys never truly saw him as the heir because he never mentioned the prophecy. Daemon doesn't like that at all, because ultimately, as much as Daemon resents his brother for the type of person he was and a weak king, he still loves his brother desperately and wanted his brother's approval so badly. And he never, ever got it. And that was kind of like one of the things that let him know he never, ever actually got it. And that's part of what this blowout is about. Because Rhaenyra says, you are, you know, you're taking out all your anger, your frustration, your rage at never being accepted, about being passed over for me, because you were heir to the throne before my father named me heir to the throne. And you have 100% right and understanding of the way this world works. Daemon's very pragmatic. He understands that you need to have strength. He understands you need to wield power. You need to do it swiftly, or bad things can happen if this gets drawn out. But the actions he takes often lead to unintended consequences. Like this, for instance.
I said, no.
I don't believe you.
And this is where she really gets into talking about how I never really trusted you necessarily. You've always kind of just looked out to, like, for yourself and shit like this.
I took this as a challenge, but I'm older now. I have challenges enough.
I have served you faithfully.
Have you? Or have you used me as a tool with which to grasp at your stolen inheritance?
Now, this is where Daemon's like, I've fucking had enough of my bitch fucking wife and niece bitching at me about this. I'm trying to take action, right? You don't understand what you need to do. You're weak. You're out there mourning your son when you should have been taking action, when we could have been taking over these places. You're not actually doing what you need to do as a queen. And Daemon's finally had enough. And we get very close to Daemon choking Rhaenyra again. We get very, very close to that happening. And as fucked up as it is, you know, and as many problems as Daemon has, he is doing things for Rhaenyra. He does love Rhaenyra. And he's doing a lot of things to try to help her. But doesn't come across that way sometimes.
When Sir Eric brought you the crown, did I myself not place it upon your brow?
Yes, but before that, you sought to lead a council of war while I labored alone in my bedchamber.
So this is, again, this is like been happening and has been boiling for a while, this tension between them and the unresolved conflict over the resentment and jealousy and bitterness that Daemon feels for not being king right now. And for his brother outshining him when he feels like he was the better man to lead.
And afterward, when I thought it meet to consider the term...
You think me some kind of monster. And Daemon continues to say, listen, I'm doing all these things for you. I'm doing all these things for you. And then this is the question. I said this, remember, in the trailer. I said this, that she had to be talking to Daemon. And I heard some people saying that wasn't happening. Do you accept me as your queen and ruler?
As your queen and ruler. Or do you cling even now to what you think you lost?
What I think I lost.
You did not lose it, you gave it away.
And this is them talking about that. My brother knew I was the stronger son, knew I was the leader of men, and still kept me down. And this is where he throws it back at her. Why do you think you were chosen? Because you're so smart, because of your virtue? Like really throwing it back at Rhaenyra and saying that he doesn't think she is capable of leading and that she didn't deserve it.
You sought greatness, but shrank from spilling blood to achieve it, and I see you will suffer the same fate.
You,
That's a great line.
any more than I can trust
You
you.
was a fool. You sought greatness, but shrank from spilling blood to achieve it, and I...
He was a fool who sought greatness, but shied away from like actually spilling the blood to achieve it. And all those things, all those weaknesses that I see in Viserys, I see in you, Rhaenyra. That's what Daemon is saying in this moment. And he's not wrong. He's not necessarily wrong. And he continues to say it was a mistake. Like, I never meant for any child to be harmed. Now, does that mean the entire thing was a mistake? Does that mean that it was a mistake for him to give that order? Does it mean that they went completely off playbook and did something he didn't order? That's left up to your interpretation. Daemon fucking leaves, swaggers out. They get Baela in here. I think this is Baela, right? Does Baela have Moondancer? Hold on, let me see.
When morning comes, take Moondancer and keep a watch on King's Landing. I must know which course they take next.
I will be vigilant.
I don't fucking know if they're going to say which one
I
it
depend
is.
on you, Baela.
There it is, Baela. That is Baela. Baela has Moondancer. Wants to know if they're going to take any action, because now that a child's been killed, war is fucking on, right? There's no way they can avoid war. So we need somebody to scout King's Landing and see if they start moving troops or if they start moving dragons or whatever happens. So I did skip over that part, actually. And earlier, Jacaerys comes up and he says that he wants to patrol. He wants to watch for that because Rhaenys is needed to make sure we keep the what is that? Oh, I can't fucking speak today. I don't know why. The blockade. Rhaenys is needed to keep the blockade going. Jacaerys wanted Rhaenyra to send him, and she immediately shuts him down. She's so damn scared of losing children at this point, and that's going to become a problem for Rhaenyra in her judgment and her fears going forward in this story. How far is Dragonstone from King's Landing? They're like right across the bay. They're extremely close to each other, which is something that we probably don't get a great understanding for. You know, in a show like Game of Thrones, I feel like it might have felt like they were a little bit further away than they truly are. They're very close. They're very close together. Vermithor for 5. Hail, brother, going to reread Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. This show, being good, has brought back my love for Game of Thrones. Hope they don't mess it up like last time. Hey, you and me both, Vermithor. And I can't wait to see you in this show. Sons and Shadows becomes a member and then gives 5 memberships as well. Shout out, Sons and Shadows. I appreciate that. And then we witness Daemon. This scene's fucking awesome, by the way. Daemon says, hey, I'm not fucking wanted here. I'll go do something else. On top of Caraxes, the coolest looking fucking dragon in this thing. He's a weirdo. He's got little tiny legs. His wings are strange. He's a big fucking worm. Like, Caraxes is weird as shit, but he's also really cool. There he is. The Rogue Prince is going rogue right now. There you go. Can't play too much of it because they're going to fucking copyright strike me, but, and he's off. Now we get this scene, and this just tells you how fucked up this family is, right? The Blacks have their problems, but look at the Greens. This is poor Helena going through by herself the death of her son, who she was partly responsible for, right? Pointing out who it was. And there's just no one to comfort her. And Aegon's certainly going through his own grief. Right? There's no doubt. You know, Aegon's fucked up with this thing. But this is not only are they husband and wife, they're brother and sister. And this is the type of support you get. A little glance. That's it. That's it. Where the fuck? I'm on the wrong thing. You got to feel bad for that. And now we get to see another person who's feeling a lot of guilt for everything that happened. But it's hard to feel as bad for this piece of shit. Kristen Cole is watching them disassemble Prince Jaehaerys's bed that he was killed in, a bloody mattress. And this is Kristen Cole who's sitting there and realizing that not only am I a fucking oath breaker time after time after time, but me breaking my oaths led to me not being there to protect this person that I should have been there for. I should have been there and I wasn't. And there's a lot of levels to that, right? There's a lot of levels to probably what Kristen Cole is thinking right now. And this is all, there's another sequence in here. As they're sitting there looking at this room that the kids were just in, you get a shot of Dragonstone with Rhaenyra. Right? A shot of Dragonstone with Rhaenyra with her kids, Daemon's children, Aegon and Viserys. Now, if you're a book reader, these kids are supposed to be much older than this. But this is a compressed timeline. We don't have Maelor, right? We don't have an heir right now. We don't have a second son for like of Aegon's children because of this compressed timeline. That also means these kids are much younger. And I don't really know how that's going to play out because these kids are pretty important to something that goes down later. I think to something that we'll see in season 3 probably. And I don't know how they'll do that with them this young. I don't really know. I don't know. But all this is happening as you see bad parents versus better parents. We'll say that. Men normally grieve alone. Yes. Men don't like to let people know when something's bothering them. Kristen Cole is standing outside Alicent, or outside Alicent's room asking, Alicent's like, did you tell anybody? And he's like, who am I going to tell? There's no absolution for me. Like, I've done so many bad things. There's no absolution that I could find by telling somebody. And I think Alicent is rightly concerned that she might tell someone, considering he felt so bad about fucking Rhaenyra that he admitted it to her, even though that wasn't the question he was going to her to ask, right? He just felt so bad about it. So you might understand why Alicent is worried that Kristen Cole might tell somebody because he feels so guilty about what happened. This scene was a little bit of a surprise to me because I didn't know they were going to do that this episode. This, what is coming up right here. And Kristen Cole goes in, sees Sir Eric, not Sir Arik. Sir Arik, not Sir Eric. He sees Sir Arik with an A eating lunch, and he realizes his cloak is dirty. God, this is a long. I didn't think it was going to take that long for him to look.
What is this?
So you can see his white cloak is dirty from what they did earlier, the funeral procession. It was muddy, blah, 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 that stuff. So Kristen Cole, the one who is broken all of his vows, who's a massive piece of shit, who's living a lie, who's living in guilt, who's living in sin, has got his fancy white cloak on. And he's upset at Sir Arik because, hey, this cloak symbolizes our purity and all of these things on our vows. It's really important that you keep that clean. What a fucking sniveling piece of shit.
It's a reminder of yesterday, I think. The procession was muddy. I'll replace it, Hans. Do it now.
Do it now.
The night was long, Sir Kristen. And I had not eaten. If I could
You
just...
defy my authority, Sir Arik.
I'm trying to get to the line where he talks about
I do not.
the white cloak.
The white cloak is a symbol of our purity. our fidelity. Kingsguard are a sacred trust.
Right. So this is all fucking projection from Kristen Cole, right? All projection from Kristen Cole. And they actually have a back and forth. And Kristen Cole asks, where were you when the prince was murdered? And Sir X, like, I was with Aegon, where I was supposed to be. Where the fuck were you? Where were you supposed to be? You are Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Why was Helena not given a sworn protector, which would be normal, which would have prevented this from happening? Now, this is not very far removed. If you watch the After the Show, you realize it's only been 5 days. Only 5 days since Kristen Cole was made head of the Kingsguard. So it's been 5 days since essentially Aegon took over. So there hasn't been a ton of time. That's one of the reasons they're low on Kingsguard, right? It's a process to get more Kingsguard approved. Half of them went with Rhaenyra, half of them are there. They are light on staff. But, you know, Kristen Cole is very defensive about this allegation because he actually knows it's true, that he's the reason. And then he says, hey, maybe there is something you can do, Sir Eric. You can go, because your traitor brother went with Rhaenyra, maybe we can use that to our advantage. And Kristen Cole commands Sir Eric to infiltrate Dragonstone and assassinate Rhaenyra. This is not something that Eric wants to do. Fuck this thing. This is not something that Eric wants to do at all. He feels shady about it. He feels terrible about it, but he's given an order by the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. And he probably feels a little guilty because his brother isn't with him either. Like his brother, like everyone can throw that in his face that his brother's a traitor, that his brother betrayed him, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he says, hey, listen, everybody knows your face there. They're going to think you're your brother. Just go in there and kill Rhaenyra. You can get it done by yourself, and we'll get some vengeance for what happened here. And we can end all of this shit before it really starts going. We get a nice little scene here between Rhaena and Jace. I think it's God. I get all this shit fucked up. Jacaerys and Rhaena. Or is it Baela? I gotta fucking look it up. I forget. I have the toughest time keeping Rhaena and Baela fucking straight. I hate it. And I don't know why. Early years, betrothed to Baela. Hold on. Baela. So this is Baela, the same one we just saw, who does have a dragon, Moon Dancer. This is Baela, apparently. Wait, no. Rhaenyra announced the betrothal of her two eldest sons, daughters of Princess Daemon and Lady Laena. Jacaerys, 4 years old, was betrothed to Baela. Yes, so this is Baela, I believe, right here. They have a nice little sequence. She's shooting a crossbow, whatever, and they're talking about fathers because Daemon, her father, has just left. He's remembering Laenor, his supposed father, and then she just straight up brings up, well, what about Sir Harwin Strong? So it's clear they share this bond. She knows that he's a bastard. She knows that Harwin Strong was actually his father, and they're very open about that. And this is, their family and they're betrothed. And they obviously, there's a lot of trust between them. And a lot of memories of her uncle, his fake father, and stuff like that they're sharing together. There's this scene that's just pretty good too.
I miss Luke.
Poor Jacaerys always wants to do the right thing, a stand-up dude. He would be a great king someday, and he just misses his fucking brother, who got chomped by Mama Vhagar. Now we get this scene of in a brothel, and this was like the most shocking moment of the fucking time for me. You've got some super skinny ass motherfucker. That's Aemond. Aemond is sitting there with this woman that we saw, if you remember, this woman that we saw on the streets of Silk, who Kristen Cole and Aemond went to ask where Aegon was. This is the person who took his virginity. This is the one who says, oh, you've really grown up. He is now there, sitting there like a baby in the arms of a mother. Like I said, all of these children are fucked up from Alicent. And Aemond is basically all of the weaknesses that he won't show in front of his family because he's trying to pretend like he's strong. He's trying to pretend like he has no regrets over what happened with Luke, like all this shit. He's now confessing basically everything. I feel bad about Luke. I feel really sad about this. I feel bad about this. Like cradled in a mother's arms effectively. This dude has mommy issues. And one of the things, look at the memes of fucking Voldemort were going wild. I don't know if this is altered anymore, if this is actually the way his body looks. He looks like a fucking cancer patient. It looks very strange. But for her, she does have one line that's interesting, and it's basically, just so you know, when princes lose their tempers, it's the small folk that suffer. And this is going to be a common theme throughout this show, that the small folk are important, and how they feel about things are important, even though the royals never give a shit about them. Because if push comes to shove and there is an opportunity for them to rebel or protest or something, it could happen. It can get out of control. And that is something that will come up later in this series. Will absolutely happen. We get this scene of Hugh, this is a random fucking sequence of Hugh, the blacksmith who got the promise of help from Aegon, who is very, like, in this sequence, he's got a daughter who's sick. The cost of everything, inflation is up in Westeros right now, especially in King's Landing. He's complaining about that. But he feels confident that with the work he's promised to do for the king, what the crown has promised to do for them, that everything will be okay. I don't think it's going to remain this way for Hugh. I don't think that's going to remain. And I think something's going to happen that is going to make him not trust the crown anymore and maybe go another way. All right, they're setting this up. Right after this sequence, we get Adam of Hull talking to his brother, Alan of Hull. And it seems like Adam wants his brother to maybe take advantage of what he did for Corlys by saving Corlys to get something. There's obviously something that we don't quite understand yet about these two and their relationship to Corlys. Adam very much wants to take advantage of it. Alan seems to want, like, not to have too much to do with Corlys in a way. And we don't really know why yet. But this is setting things up for later in this season. Book readers know what I'm talking about. Dragon seeds, all of this shit. All right. We get this scene of Corlys and Rhaenys basically talking about how Daemon just left, how that's kind of a fucking big deal that Daemon just left, because we need Daemon. He's strong. He knows how to take action. He knows how to be a warrior. Maybe he's off to Harrenhal. Who knows what the fuck he's doing? And Rhaenys is kind of saying, even though Rhaenys is very judgmental of Daemon in general, she's kind of telling Corlys, listen, I've had to feel the crown pass over me before. It's not an easy fucking thing to deal with. And almost saying we need to give Daemon a little bit of time. But in the process, we need to make sure that Rhaenyra takes all the right steps, because she probably realizes that Rhaenyra is fucking up right now too. What is this sequence? All right, Rhaenyra is in the library looking at books of Visenya Targaryen, by the way. I'm pretty sure, if we can see this. Those are the three heads. Those are Aegon and his two sister wives. That's Visenya on Vhagar right there. She's looking at Visenya, this warrior queen with Dark Sister in her hands. Remember the Targaryens of old. Maybe that'll come into play a little bit later. But Mysaria, the White Worm, the one who essentially sold information to the Hightowers, got betrayed by them, gets captured by Daemon. Daemon gets her help to do what he wanted to do with Aemond and Jaehaerys, all this shit that happened. She was right in the middle of this, right? She gets questioned by Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra doesn't really fucking believe her and is resentful that she played a role in giving information to the Hightowers. Daemon promised to set her free, but a lot of bad shit came out of that. However, they do both kind of trauma bond over the fact that Daemon is kind of a piece of shit partner, because obviously he was with Mysaria. Rhaenyra didn't even recognize that until they kind of made the connections a little bit later. She sees the scars. I didn't catch this in the first watch through. She sees the scars that are on her neck and asks if, where'd you get those? Daemon gave them to her, probably implying that Daemon choked her just like she choked Rhaenyra. They kind of bond over talking about what a bad person Daemon can be. They will talk again later. I wasn't a big fan of this sequence, to be honest. I think that Rhaenyra is a little too trusting of her. Somebody talked about that she dropped the accent. Yes, they 100% heard fan feedback about how bad her accent was, and they changed it for this season, which I think is a good thing. You know, fans complain about something, rightfully so, and instead of bitching out the fans for it, you say, "Hey, maybe they had a good point. Let's change it." And they made her accent a little less thick. But they're basically like, I don't think that there should be this much compassion from Rhaenyra towards her after everything she's done. But at this point, she's saying, hey, go back. I'm going to keep you locked up for now. We get another sequence of Adam of Hall. Well, there seems to be a dragon there. Doesn't look like that dragon has a rider. Looks like a gray dragon. That's fucking Sea Smoke. That's who this is. If you remember, Sea Smoke was Rhaenyra's dragon. Rhaenyra, who is supposed to be dead, but not really. He went off across the narrow sea to go fuck with his boy, right? Rhaenyra and Daemon set up faking his death. So there's Sea Smoke with no Rhaenyra, just flying around. You know? Just flying around. And for some reason, Adam is looking at Sea Smoke. Don't know why that could be important or foreshadowing for later. I guess we'll see. And then we see this. We see that Aegon has taken it upon himself, despite winning over the people, of King's Landing, despite Otto setting all this up and manipulating a horrific event to their benefit to make Rhaenyra look like a piece of shit and make the small folk have sympathy for Aegon and the crown. You see dozens and dozens of rat catchers strung up. And you also see that one of them is in fact cheese. Aegon found the right one. Look at the fucking dog, the pup, the little dog that got kicked, the dog that everyone cared way more about in the first episode. The dog makes a comeback as the dog looks at his owner.
What I do?
Look at this shit. There he is. There's Cheese. They caught Cheese. They caught the rat catcher. And the dog, despite being abused, there he is. That poor dog still loves him. Listen, this tells you dogs are too good for us. Like, we do not deserve to have dogs in our life because this is like a legit, real fucking thing that could happen. Also, there's people like this. There are people that get attached to an abusive fucking spouse or an abusive fucking partner. Instead of getting the fuck out, they make excuse after excuse for them and refuse to get them out of their lives. And even feel bad when bad things happen to them. So there's people in there too. Now, Otto is fucking mad. Because all of the things he just set up just got taken away.
What have you done?
And it's Aegon and Kristen Cole sitting there looking like best buds when Otto walks in.
The rat catchers!
Oh, I had them hanged.
I love what a fucking asshole Aegon is, too. What do you mean? What did I do? Oh, I had him hanged. I don't give a fuck.
The maggot who took my son confessed to an accomplice. He could not say for certain which man it was.
Idiot!
Beware how you speak to your king, my lord.
Otto's losing his shit now, right? Otto is overstepping and losing his shit in this moment because of the dumb things his grandson has just done.
The king is my grandson, and my grandson is a fool. He's worse than a fool. He's murdered innocent men.
And one guilty one.
And
I don't care if I hung 1 million innocent people as long as I got the one person who was responsible for the death of my child, right? And hang them from the walls of the city for all to see. All of these people who we spent the grief, the blood of my great-grandson, like all of these things that we sacrificed for, Aegon, that were hard to do, hard to use my daughter and my granddaughter's grief like that in a public display. You threw it away by hanging all of these people in public. And again, this is Otto's fault in part for never really preparing Aegon for something like this. It's Viserys' fault. It's a lot of people's fault for Aegon having no understanding of what his responsibilities are as a king, having no awareness of the political nature and the effects that his actions can have in the long run. I love this. There's about to be a slow head turn when he realizes something else happened too.
Even now, news of Rhaenyra's monstrous crime spreads through the realm. The great houses falter. They cannot but come to our side.
I wish to spill blood, not ink.
That's a great
We
line.
must act.
Sir Kristen Cole has acted.
So Kristen Cole has acted. Look at Otto's fucking response to this.
And what has Sir Kristen Cole done?
So what has Sir Kristen Cole done? I love like the slow mouth open. Like, what the fuck did he do? And this is where he realizes the plan for Sir Arik to go infiltrate Dragonstone and murder Rhaenyra, right? And essentially, Otto's like, don't you understand, right? Don't you understand what your actions can have? We're fighting a political battle right now, and you're really fucking things up. And honestly, this is a great part too, because Otto misses Viserys. Now, Otto maybe misses Viserys because he actually cared for him, or because Viserys was so easy to fucking manipulate. But I like this scene too.
Forbearance is...
Let me back it up a little.
You never think of your father. His forbearance, his judiciousness.
And, you know, for all his flaws, I do think Viserys is very flawed as a king. I think he was a very good person, you know? But sometimes good people, that's not enough. That doesn't make a good king. Sometimes you have to make decisions that make you feel bad. You know, you have to choose the lesser of two evils. You have to take action instead of just let things play out sometimes. And it's one of the reasons I don't think Viserys was a very good king.
Dignity.
Fuck dignity.
I want revenge.
That's who Aegon is. Aegon is not his father's son. And to be fair, he was ignored by Viserys a lot. A lot. This is great, actually. Now, Aegon is like, my father wanted me to be king. Look at Otto's fucking reaction. I got to keep pause for the copyright. I'm sorry, guys.
He was right about you.
He made me king.
That fucking laugh, that evil fucking laugh from him.
Is that what you think?
Essentially acknowledging that he doesn't even believe Alicent's story that Viserys changed his mind. They were always going to do this. It was always going to happen this way. He was always going to steal the throne from Rhaenyra and give it to Aegon. Always. As he's walking out the door, Aegon's basically like, no, motherfucker, you know what?
Hand. Not mine.
You're done.
Take it off.
Relieves him of his post as hand and says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give it to fucking Kristen Cole. My next hand is going to be a steel fist. Kristen Cole is not ready for this, by the way.
Go.
He is shocked by this turn of events. Kristen Cole, who is right now one of the most unstable people in the realm, has just been given even more responsibility. Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and now officially Hand of the Throne. Or Hand of the King, sorry.
Great.
Otto basically walks out and realizes that he is just really fucked up. Here is Massaria. Rhaenyra has decided, listen, my husband gave you his word, and I don't really trust you, but I'm going to honor the word that he gave you, which is kind of a dumb decision by Rhaenyra, and I wish she had paid for this instead of getting rewarded for this. That's one of my criticisms about the episode. She's going to take a ship back, so she's going down to the ships. And she was just there with Sir Eric to get escorted out. As she's walking down, she sees some people walking up. Including member of the King's Guard, who looks a hell of a lot like the person she just saw up at the castle. Now, we don't actually get confirmation. It's very much implied, like she wants to send a warning to the castle. We don't get that. Instead, for the next little bit, we get a sequence of Sir Arik pretending to be Eric and essentially infiltrating. Hey, we thought you were up there. He's like, no, you guys aren't very vigilant. Let me in, blah, blah, blah. And it's a little bit of a maze game. He's going in there trying to avoid being spotted by his brother, which he does a couple times, takes his helmet off to make sure he looks more like him. And nobody really gives it a second thought. And this is as Rhaenyra is just kind of getting ready for bed, effectively. They do have this sequence right here, where they go right by each other, the twins, the Cargill twins. Rhaenyra is kind of getting her hair done like Visenya did in that picture. I don't like in that braid. I don't know if that's actually supposed to mean anything because she was reading the Visenya shit or not. I don't know. But he essentially goes to Sir Laurent, I think, who is supposed to be guarding Rhaenyra at the time.
It's been a strange day. I'm restless. I will stand this evening's duty.
And he did lock the other door from the other side, by the way. And Kingsguard would be familiar with Dragonstone. Like, it's not like they wouldn't be familiar with this castle, with this place. They certainly would be. But Rhaenyra is trying to go to sleep. And then this happens. Hold on.
Sir Eric.
Believe me, I had no choice.
Now, you might be asking the question, why didn't he just run up and stab her or pretend to like get closer or whatever? I think that Arik has a ton of fun. I don't think he wants to do this, like, at all. I think he feels very conflicted. The idea of like going up and sneaking up and putting a knife in her back, I don't think that's something he wants to do. And I feel like he feels like she deserves to like at least know, and that's why he says that. But he never gets the chance.
I don't understand.
Brother! Do not do this. I beg you. You are the one who betrayed us, Eric.
Now, this is a fight that for readers of the books we've known about. This is a very it's a part that stands out in the Dance of the Dragons and in Fire and Blood, the book. Just because of how heartbreaking it is. These two brothers that find themselves on opposite sides of this war, just because the people that they're sworn to are mad at each other, right? They're fighting over all of this power, and you're a servant. Right? You're supposed to do what you're told, and you've probably got a lot of mixed feelings about all this shit. And you end up on opposite sides of this war between houses, and it becomes opposite sides of war in your own house. And your identical twin, who you've done everything with your entire life, is all of a sudden on the opposite side of you. And it's brutal. It's heartbreaking in the book. Farewell, My Brother ends up being a song that's written and sang throughout Westeros, remembering the duel between the Cargill twins. And, one of them tries to go at Rhaenyra, the other one blocks him. One of the servants eventually runs out to go get help while Rhaenyra is kind of still cornered and can't really get out because every time she does, Arik tries to get to her. But you see some of this. And one of the things that takes place, I wish I could just play the whole thing for you guys. Obviously, copyright, I can't. But if you watch, like, they do get in, like, one gets hit in the leg, and then a little bit later on the duel, the other takes a similar injury on the leg. One gets hit in the arm, one gets a similar injury on the arm. And obviously, they're fucking twins. And everything is getting so complicated and complex that the people that are watching are not quite sure what's going on, right? Not quite sure who is who.
With me, your grace.
Now, this is the other Kingsguard who had already taken off his armor, right, and was in bed probably when they went in to get him.
Wait.
And here it is. He doesn't fucking know.
Which is Eric?
She doesn't know either. And we got to let this play out too, this little dialogue here.
We were born together. You parted us! But I still love you, brother.
Now, the one on top right there is Eric with an E, not Arik. So the one who is loyal to Rhaenyra. Eric is with the blacks. Arik is with the greens. And it's Eric who is on top of him right now, choking him, who just said those things. He also had that leg wound. It just got fucked up. Ah, spoiled that one. They're just sitting there, you know, watching what's happening because they're locked in. He did lock the other side of the room. And very intentionally, because of the way they shot this, they really wanted you to not quite know. They wanted to be very uncertain in this moment who was getting stabbed. And this is fucking brutal, right? This is brutally sad. Watching a brother finding themselves on the opposite side of something, forced to kill their own fucking brother. Like, it really is. And as good, as powerful as I thought the scene was in the book, and I didn't think Blood and Cheese was done as well as it was in the book. Obviously, I talked about that a lot. I actually think that this was done better than the book in terms of, like, the emotions that you feel from it, like when you're watching it play out. Especially because of what they do at the end right here. Because they still don't know who this is, right? They don't know. Rhaenyra, Solar, they don't know if this is Eric or Arik. Until right here.
Your Grace.
Eric.
Forgive me.
No. No.
That's fucking brutal, man. That is brutal. Now that is Eric, right? Eric, the one who's loyal to Rhaenyra. She is the one. He is the one who won. Confirmed by, if you do pay attention enough, you can see it. If you rewatched it a couple times, you can tell that that is him. And then also, it was confirmed in the aftermath by you know, the showrunner that it was Eric who won. And it makes sense. He said, "Your Grace," right? I don't think that Arik would have said that necessarily. So this is the one who is loyal to Rhaenyra, literally falling on his own sword. This was a brutally powerful scene, especially live watching it. But it is, this is what happens when the Targaryens fight over power like this. Everybody gets caught up, and even honorable people are honorable in their own way end up suffering for it. Now, this is a conversation between Otto, because Otto now knows he's going to leave. Like, he can't stay at King's Landing. He's going to go somewhere else. And we get a Daeron Targaryen name drop. Now, Daeron is the youngest son of the 4 children of Alicent and Viserys. He hasn't gotten any mention or screen time, I don't think, in the first season. He finally gets a mention because he right now is at Hightower being, basically being, what is he doing there? Like, I don't want to say a page, but he's basically following around one of Otto's relatives right now and kind of learning things. Not an understudy. I'm really getting my fucking Song of Ice and Fire words messed up. It's like a ward of somebody right now, effectively. It's the way he's being treated. Cupbearer. Yes. He's a squire. He's helping people out over in Old Town and learning from his family there. And this is the 4th child. It's a 3rd son. It's not somebody who you would ever expect to take over the throne. Like, this is pretty common for these things to happen in Westeros. And so he right now is in Old Town. And here it is.
The Hightowers still have strength, and you have a son there who'll take more kindly to instruction. Daeron may yet help us in weeks to come.
You have a son there who will be more receptive to my instruction, Daeron. And Daeron is going to play a part. I don't think we're going to see him in this season. I would imagine probably next season we'll see Daeron and Tessarion, his like beautiful blue dragon, which is really fucking cool. Daeron the Daring. But she says, no, go to Highgarden instead. Go help with the Tyrells. Because Otto still has like political machinations that he needs to do. Alicent is still feeling guilty as shit. This is a crazy line.
I have sinned.
I do not wish to hear of it.
I don't give a fuck, right? He doesn't care. His daughter, Alicent, who he essentially set up and forced her to marry Viserys, who has witnessed a lot of horrific shit, including the death of her own grandson, like while her daughter's sitting there pointing it out, like all of these things. Alicent's been through a lot. And I don't think Alicent is guilt-free. I think Alicent's a massive piece of shit, a massive hypocrite. But she is like telling her father, I feel so much guilt. I feel so much going on. I have to tell you. Otto says, I don't want to hear it. This is the legacy of this family. Parents who are not there for their children. Otto, who is willing to use Alicent in every fucking way and not there for her when she needs him. What happens then? Alicent is not there for Aegon, for Aemond, for Helena. And now you have 3 kids that are completely fucked up. Maybe Daeron will be a little different. But this scene is fucking brutal as well, because after that, after seeing that Otto is not willing to be a parent that's there for his child, what does Alicent do? She walks in and sees Aegon just crying. Aegon is breaking down in tears because of the guilt, because of the rage, because of the pain, because he doesn't know what to do, because he is powerless. What is it? Do we get a scene of Alicent comforting Aegon? No. She goes into her room. She's fiddling with her hands. Walks away to go back to her room where Kristen Cole is there once again. These 2 pieces of shit deserve each other, first off. She slaps him a couple times. Maybe because he's there unannounced, that he assumes that they're just going to fuck again after what just happened led to the death of one of her grandchildren. But turns out He's kind of into it. And so is she. Now listen, a little bit of finger banging while you push a girl up against the wall, there's nothing wrong with that. I fully endorse, right, all of these actions, but unfortunately for them, they shouldn't be doing these things. He's a Kingsguard. Her husband just died 5 days ago, and this is Westeros. This should not be happening. Fully endorse eating pussy. I fully endorse letting her ride you. I fully endorse some finger banging up against the wall. 100%. But come on, what are you doing? And that's it. That's the episode right there. Now, some things I did, the things that I had the biggest problem with were the interaction between Rhaenyra and Mysaria. I feel like there was too much, oh, we're both women who have had it rough type of things. I feel like Rhaenyra was dumb to trust her, and we didn't get confirmation of it in this episode, but it's definitely implied that Mysaria alerted everybody that she thinks that might be an imposter, and that's why Eric was able to get on the scene to fight Arik so quickly. I definitely think that is the implication that you were supposed to get from that. And what I wish would have happened instead was Rhaenyra makes a smart decision to not trust this person who really should not be trustworthy. Just because you have shared trauma over Daemon abusing you. I don't think that that's enough for them to be able to trust each other. What I wish would have happened was she's like, well, fuck you. I can't take that risk. Nothing personal, kid, but I'm going to keep you locked up. And maybe while she's locked up, maybe she sees Eric go one way and like Arik go another. And she, even though she's locked up, even though she doesn't have the benefit of the doubt, she decides to use that to gain Rhaenyra's trust and alert somebody. And that's what ends up saving her. And I think that would make Rhaenyra look a little less stupid and gullible and continue making bad decisions that don't have bad outcomes if they had done it that way. So I have a criticism for that. I felt like the way that the Dragon Seed scenes, and for Dragon Seed, I'm talking about Hugh Hammer, Alan, and Adam Valerian scenes, I feel like those sequences felt ham-fisted. I really think they did. But I liked a lot of shit. I think the duel was fantastic. It was so emotional seeing those guys. I think that the argument between Rhaenyra and Daemon, I think that both of them have their own viewpoints. Daemon is 100% right on a lot of things. Rhaenyra is also right that a lot of this is bitterness and resentment because he didn't get the throne. They both have their faults and they both have their things they're right about. But I thought the acting and the what got brought out in that scene was something that needed to be addressed. And I think it was performed fantastic. I just thought it was great. Seeing Daemon then ride off, like pissed off on Caraxes to go take Harrenhal was amazing too. But yeah, this is a story of a family that's fucked up. Aegon was brilliant. I thought Aegon was brilliant, whether he was enraged, whether he was crying, whether he was being a smug asshole after killing the rat catchers. I thought it was awesome. And what happened, there's two things that are going to have big ramifications. Daemon leaving and now Rhaenyra being truly alone by herself going to have big implications for Rhaenyra, because as much as people might not necessarily trust Daemon as a king or something, people have a lot of respect for Daemon and his dragon and what he can do in battle. The fact that he's now gone without a word is going to make some people question if Rhaenyra has the strength to do what needs to be done and has the forces at her back to do what needs to be done. So that's an important thing. The fact that Aegon pushed Otto out and put Kristen Cole, who is unstable as fuck, and they both want vengeance. They both want violence, and that's the only thing they care about. They don't care about the politics. They just care about revenge. We're about to see a different green team going forward than with Otto trying to restrain everybody. So those things are going to have massive implications. Those three in their scene were awesome. Daemon and Rhaenyra were awesome. So overall, like I said, I think this episode has better highs than what we saw from the premiere, but it also has a couple things that is kind of like, I didn't really like that. You know, lower lows and higher highs. Overall, if I'm going to tell you, like, basically the same quality of a show in general, but little more things that you can pick apart as opposed to the first episode. But a lot of things praiseworthy, I think, in the episode as well. So that's it. That's it for us. Let's take a look at these. Atomic Lori. Kristen Cole is the Kamala Harris of the realm. Sleeps his way up, fucks everything up, and gets promoted, failing upwards. Hey, not a bad comparison right there, Atomic Lori. Not a bad comparison. KC for 20. Thanks for covering Hot D, Ryan. Great stream again. Thank you. I appreciate it. We had almost 400 people watching us here, which I will consider that a win on this this little second channel that I have over here. But if there's anybody that has any questions or whatever about the episode, we'll go a couple more minutes. If anybody has any questions they want to ask me. The scene with Adam and Alan is great. You haven't seen what I've seen was great line to make fun of Rings of Power. Yeah, it was fine. It was just for me, who has all the context from the book, I see that scene and I'm like, okay, I get what they're doing. For everybody else that's watching it, it probably feels ham-fisted in and they don't even know why the fuck it's there. And I think that Mahler brought up a good point when we were on doing a reaction stream yesterday. The best way to do characters like that is how they did in the first episode. Like, have Hugh talking to Aegon and be surrounded by other characters we know. Have Adam talking to Corlys. So it's a Corlys scene, but we get to know this new character. They probably should have worked in a way to do that with those characters as well, to get to know more about them with characters we know, instead of it being very much point of view for their perspective, just kind of out of the blue. And I don't know where else you would put it in the episode, but it just felt like very sudden and strange and not connected to anything else that happened throughout this entire episode. And that's just why it feels off. That's just why it feels off, in my opinion. I'm still not convinced Eric Black beat Arik Green. Well, technically he did. Let me see if I can find it. Now, they certainly want you to question everything, right? They certainly want it to be open to interpretation. 100%. Ryan Condal made a statement. See if I can find it. I'm sorry, I'm looking it up. The second episode, Alder Elena's presence. Let's see. Clearly the show, Happier Tale. Sorry, I'm reading. God damn it. There is an actual quote from Ryan Condal about this. My alarm just went off for some reason. I've seen the sequence 100 times now, and having put it together through post, I find it incredibly moving, compelling every time. House of the Dragon showrunner Ryan Condal said, "We knew when we cast Eric and Arik that we were going to have to come together in this climactic battle. Our challenge to Kate Rowe James, our amazing casting director, was, do you have a set of identical twins you can't tell apart who are both good actors?" I can't find the specific statement right now, but I believe he did confirm that Sir Eric was the one who won. But, you know, what am I going to do? Can't find it right now. Thanks for the fun stream, says Shorty Short. Hey, no problem. Glad you're hanging out. What do you think will happen next? So next, I think we are going to see, in episode 3, I think we're going to see Daemon flying to Harrenhal and taking Harrenhal to show Rhaenyra his dedication, right? Like that he can do something to help. I think so. I think we're going to see that, which is going to be cool. I don't know how much Harrenhal we're going to see, but I hope we get a ton of Harrenhal in this season and maybe next season as well. Because Daemon's going to go take it over. I don't think there's going to be a ton of resistance at the time if he comes there with Caraxes. And then I also think from the green side, now that Otto's out of the picture, you're going to see this triumvirate of Aegon, Aemond, and Kristen Cole, who they're not about sending ravens. They're not about sending letters to people. They're not about, oh, I wonder if we can get the small folk to love us. They're going to be, let's get armies let's take our dragons and let's fuck shit up. That's what we're about to see for the next few episodes. I don't know how much of that takes place next episode. Harrenhal certainly will take place next episode. But I do think we're going to start to see the army of the Greens on the move and maybe even involved in some stuff. I think we might see that sequence of Bela on Moondancer potentially chasing down Kristen Cole or something like that. I think we might end up seeing that if she sees them on the move and goes back and alerts the Blacks of what's going on. Eric won. If you freeze the frame, his knee was cut. Actually, if you go back, both brothers took shots to the leg in the same similar spot. And if you watch the inside the episode, they did it intentionally because they really wanted you to have no idea of knowing who it was until the moment he kind of does that. So he takes the shot early to the leg, and then like Eric is on top, and when Arik like puts his hand in his fucking wound and shit, but it's in a different sequence where Arik gets fucking sliced a little bit in a very similar spot. And they intentionally did it, right? They talk about it in the behind the scenes shit, which is cool. Let's see. When he got up and said your grace, yeah, 100%. Yes, that is Eric at the end, who's the last survivor who falls. Yes. Ryan Condal did confirm it. Rook's Rest is episode 4. I believe it's titled Dance of the Dragons. Yeah. So that's going to be sick. For people that have read the book, you know what's going to happen. That's going to be fucking sick. So, but I do think we might get a little bit of a preview, little like a skirmish maybe in episode 3. A small battle in the Riverlands in episode 3, I think we might see. Rook's Rest is going to be episode 4. And that means I don't know where they're going to end it, right? Because they're not doing Battle of the Gullet this season. That's confirmed, I believe, to not be doing Battle of the Gullet till season 3. So I don't really know where exactly. I don't know if there's a great ending spot for this season. Because those are 2 major events, right? What I think is we're going to see Battle of Rook's Rest. After that, I think we're going to see Dragon Seed shit, which is why they've been introducing the Dragon Seeds early on in this. Because they're going to introduce them this season and then maybe have Battle of the Gullet next season. But I haven't seen Nettles, though. I haven't seen Nettles. There's 8 episodes this season. I think there's a chance that Nettles isn't in it, which I don't understand why. Maybe they just won't bring her in until next season, but it's weird to me. It's very weird to me. One of the few people that was like actually black in the source material that you could have used, and they might cut her out. If it was a 10-episode season, I think that they probably would have ended with Battle of the Gullet, because I think narratively it makes sense. I'm not going to spoil anything, but based on what people who know the books and the lore know, the idea of ending the first season with the death of Lucerys, I think what happens at the Battle of the Gullet would be like narratively very perfect way to end the second season as well. But get to hang on for a little bit longer. Are you forgetting about Rhaenys? I'm not forgetting about Rhaenys. You're definitely going to see her in episode 4. 100%. How will Adam have the dragon magic if Laenor isn't the father in the show? Here's my thing with that. I've never thought that Laenor was their dad, ever. He's fucking gay. Like, it wasn't him, right? It wasn't Laenor. Like, Laenor was not the father of Adam and Alan. Bottom line. Just not. Which then leaves it open to a couple other things. One, I've always felt like either it was Corlys is actually their father, or they were just fucking random bastards, and Corlys, after everything he'd lost, was so desperate for a family, you know, that's what kind of happened. And he was like willing to accept it. Because Corlys is very concerned with his lineage and his bloodline and Velaryons and all that shit. So, but I don't think it's out of the question that when you look at some of these people that are on Driftmark or on Dragonstone or whatever, the idea that even their mother could have been a bastard of some Targaryen fucking somebody else is like certainly within the realm of possibilities. Do you know what I mean? So I don't even think necessarily that it had to come from their father. I do think one unfortunate part that has happened in I think one unfortunate thing that has happened in this show is that they have made it very clear that, hey, everyone of Targaryen descent has white fucking hair, right? Or Velaryon descent even. And it's not true. In the books, Rhaenys has like jet black hair. She does not have the silver hair that she has in this. And I understand narratively they really wanted to make it stand out who's a Targaryen and who's not. So I understand that. And it wouldn't be confusing. But it does also not allow the possibility that you could have someone who's a Targaryen with jet black hair, aka Jon fucking Snow, right? So just because somebody doesn't have the hair you would expect doesn't mean that they might not have Targaryen lineage. Yeah, Baratheon is part Targaryen. I believe, what is Robert Baratheon is like 1/16 Targaryen or something. And well, there's actually speculation that there's actually speculation that the first Baratheon is Aegon the Conqueror's bastard brother. So you'd have even more Targaryen blood in the Baratheons than you would normally if you just consider the Targaryens that married into the Baratheons, as opposed to the possibility that the first Baratheon, who is Aegon's buddy, that everybody thinks is actually a bastard, if he's actually like Aegon's bastard brother. So anyway, lots of interesting things to consider. Lots of interesting things to consider. Like Joffrey, just because he doesn't have black hair doesn't mean he isn't Baratheon. Well, that's a little bit different because I believe Ned, when he was looking at the lineage, I believe he went to every single pairing whenever a Lannister had ever married a Baratheon, and they showed that like the dark hair was like the dominant gene. Is that really how it works? You know, just going back and saying, wow, these 5 times in history this happened, it's never been light haired. Probably not, but in this world it worked. What am I drinking? Nika whiskey, Japanese Nika whiskey right there. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for me. I think that's going to be it for me today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Is this, come on. Is this real? People are like brigading Kristen Cole's Instagram, like saying, I hate that you let these people be murdered. You're a terrible person. So silly. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter. All right, guys. I will talk to you guys next week. Excited for next week, seeing Daemon kick some ass at Harrenhal after getting spanked a little bit by Rhaenyra, even though he tried to do a good thing, which turned out to cause the murder of an innocent child. But, you know, it's Daemon. When Daemon does things, when Daemon puts the hood up, the up to no good hood, you never know what's going to happen. But I will talk to all you guys next week, same day, relatively same time. And if you want to hear my immediate reaction to the stream, Nerdrotic, myself, Mauler, Gary, and sometimes Fringy, sometimes Shad, sometimes somebody else will be reacting to every episode of House of the Dragon as it comes out live on the Nerdrotic YouTube channel immediately after it ends. I will talk to all of you guys next week. Peace.